and protected them during this cataclysm that destroyed the world. The first world by fire, and the second world by ice. And the third world, when that was destroyed, the Hopis apparently were left on their own. The ant people didn't help them with the third world. It's said that the Hopi escaped the flood by floating on bamboo rafts to the fourth world. But these ant people are an interesting phenomenon to look at, to see in the rock art, for instance. It's just amazing to see the legends come alive in the stone that you're looking at.
Do you think that, because I recently interviewed Martin Dutré on this program, and I know that you referenced him in one of your articles, and of course, as we spoke, he talked about this kind of, more global civilization that have been part of the ancient world, I guess, that kind of this was a global civilization that was able to travel around the world and kind of set up all these different structures. And of course, this connects Egypt with South America, with North America, with Asia, because we find, pyramids in China and of course all over the place. And is this kind of the main thesis in your book too, or do you go into that at all?
Yeah, the second part of the book deals with the Hopi supposedly coming from the South Pacific. Some of the Hopi clans, especially the Water clan, called the Patki clan, supposedly they have legends of traveling across the Pacific and on bamboo rafts and stopping on stepping stones, or islands across the Pacific, and eventually coming to the mouth of the Colorado River and going up the Colorado River and coming out at the Grand Canyon onto the Colorado Plateau where the Hopi now live. So there's a lot of evidence that points to the Hopi as a kind of a mariner culture in the past. So these desert people out here, they once were seafarers, so they traveled across the ocean. It's interesting to note that there are a lot of terms that crop up. I was talking about the ant people before. The Hopi word for ant is Anu, A-N-U, and the word for friend in Hopi is Naki.
Okay.
Anunnaki. Of course, Zechariah Sitchin would be very pleased to hear that. But the ant friends helped the Hopi people. The Anunnaki helped the Hopi people in their journeys and helped them escape from these two cataclysms that overtook them. So
amazing. So there is correlation all over the globe, and of course the stuff in the Bible about the flood and things like this. I mean, it seems to be that there have been global cataclysms in the past, of course, and many different cultures have been experiencing them. And do you know if the Hopi kind of predicts this coming again this time then with new global cataclysms, so to speak?
Well, the time frame is not really set. It's said that the Hopi are the keepers of the land, and the Maya are the keepers of time. So the Maya are really more precise in their calendars and so forth. The Hopi are still performing rituals today on the reservation to keep the earth in balance, essentially. But the Hopi are kind of vague in their time frame. They said, well, it's very close. The end of the fourth world is very close. But they're not as specific as the Maya are in for instance, the 2012 date.
Yeah.
But talking about the global culture, just amazing. Orion is found all over the world.
Yeah.
For instance, the Hopi Egyptian connection I go into in my book.
Mm-hmm.
The Hopi have a kachina called the Sohu kachina, and this kachina has 3 stars that are above the mask, kind of in a crest above the head, and this represents the belt of Orion. The Sohu kachina is Sohu is the word for star in Hopi, and if you go to the Egyptian language, you see the word Sahu, which is very close, and this is the word that represents the constellation Orion. So you have the Sohu kachina that the Hopi talk about, and then the Sahu that represents Orion. So you have these connections come up all the time.
Yeah.
Between the two cultures. So I have no doubt that there's been a kind of a global seafaring culture that traveled and interacted much more than academics would have you believe.
Yeah, I remember a while back I published another article on my site. Can't remember the writer now, but he talked about the kind of the polarity or the differences or that kind of connects the Hopi with the people in Tibet. I don't know if you've heard about this, but the word, according to this writer at least, said that the Hopi word for love is the Tibetan word for hate, and that Tibetan word for love is the Hopi word for hate. So I mean,
well, there are a lot of similarities. You know, the Tibetans have the color symbology for each direction, and the Hopi have basically the same color symbology for each direction. So you know, I have no doubt that the Hopi interacted at one time or another in the old world, and then eventually made their way to the new world. And I think maybe Phoenicians or Egyptians traveled to this country and interacted as well.
Yeah, and I know that you wrote to get maybe into some at least some a bit in your article regarding the 33rd parallel. The connection to the Tower of Babel, either if we talk about it in the sense of that it is a myth, but it seems that there is a connection to that there were a global language, because as you say that there is connection between all these different words, and so do you think that there were at one time a single language on Earth?
I think you know, if you go way back, I think there might have been. I also think that different cultures, you know, picked up words phonetically from another culture and started to use these words.
Yeah.
And that's why you see so many similarities in the language. Of course, the language can be a kind of formidable thing. You can get lost in all the word similarities, and so sometimes it turns people off when you talk about that. But so I like to, you know, provide some archaeological evidence too.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
You know, the Orion correlations across the globe. There are so many of these. For instance, at Teotihuacan in Mexico, the pyramids are laid out like the belt of Orion. Another Orion correlation has been found by a colleague of mine, Jeff Nisbet. He found an Orion correlation in Scotland, and there are others that have been found in like Italy. I have another colleague, Rob Milne from South Africa, and he's working on Orion correlations down there. So it seems like the Orion mystery that Robert Bauval wrote about almost a decade ago is coming true, and there are more types of variations of the correlation all